Real Country 1430 AM and 107.3 FM WRDN. Once again, good morning on this Thursday morning as we continue our spotlight on the Gilbertson family, host of this Saturday's Dunn County Dairy Brunch from 9 until 1 here at the Gilbertson Farm, just outside of Elk Mound. And Kevin Gilbertson joins us once again as we talk about how the farm protects the land and the water as well on the farm, because they have to, for all of the cows, they got to grow all their feed. And Kevin, how many acres do you farm?
We currently run about 2,300 acres.
And so what I guess first, what's is it a thinner soil or a thicker soil? Is it hilly, flat, or a combination?
We are light. We have sandy soils. We also have rolling hills. I got one particular field that I was told that it's the most susceptible to erosion in the whole county. So we have to use conservation practices to keep our soil in place.
So what are some of the things you have to do on that field if it's so susceptible to that erosion?
We use a variety of things. I grew up with contour strips, never knew anything other than contour strips. So contour strips, waterways, we implement a lot of no-till and cover crops. And then on those really erodible soils, it gets put in hay quite often.
And so for those unfamiliar, a contour strip, from what I would understand, it's 10 rows of corn, grass, or maybe alfalfa. 10 rows of corn or soybeans, grass, or alfalfa. Is that that goes parallel with the hill or the bluff?
It follows the contour of the land, so you always try to stay at the same elevation. There'll be usually, we have ours set usually at about 120 foot wide, and then it's alternating crops up the hill. You don't want to have corn on every one. It may be corn and then hay and then maybe corn again or something like that. So
that has to make it a little bit more difficult to harvest that field because you always got something different there.
It does. When we were younger, a lot of my dad's strips were 60 foot wide, and with the bigger equipment these days, we had to make them bigger. But we actually no-till now too, so that helps. And GPS precision farming, we can get our strips the right width all the way down from one end of the field to the other, so you don't have all these short rows. But it can be a hassle, but it's what we have to do to keep our soil in place.
The other thing that you do, you mentioned cover crops. So what do you use for cover crops?
We use rye. We've been doing cover crops for a long time. We just kind of started on our own before the big push of everybody else doing them. And we put cover crop on all of our corn silage ground as soon as it's harvested, and then we do quite a bit of our soybean ground when we get the soybeans harvested.
So then what happens with that rye? Do you use it in any way, or do you sell it, or a combination?
We'll leave some acres for grain so we can produce our own cover crop seed for the following year. We bale the straw. We use that in some of our dry cow and heifer rations. And then the excess grain we sell. Either there's an elevator here that'll take it, or other local farms that want cover crop seed.
Talking with Kevin Gilbertson with Gilbertson Farms this morning. They are the host of the Dunn County Dairy Brunch this Saturday, 9 to 1, just outside of Elk Mound. Now, again, because of that erodible soil and the thinner soils, you also have to watch the water as well. So you don't want to have issues with the not only the surface water but the groundwater. So does that kind of adjust even how you use manure, where you put that on the field, where you have to really kind of time that or watch the weather? When we recorded this, it was raining, and it's been raining, so I'm sure that's really changed how you've been able to do things this spring.
With this new robot expansion, we put in our first manure pits. We have long-term storage. Up until then, we only had a week's worth of storage, so manure is always on the top of my mind. I'm always watching the weather. I'm always watching potential chances if we could have a problem with manure. So I watch the weather a lot to control manure spreading. But over the years, between cover crops and no-till and watching what we do with the manure, right east of here, a half mile, is Elk Creek. And over the years, that has been upgraded to be even I think it's a Class A trout stream now, where it wasn't back in the 60s and 70s when everybody pastured cattle along the creek. So I feel we must be doing a good job for the creek to get better over time, not get worse.
So is the creek on some of the farm's property?
We don't have any land technically bordering it, but we rent a lot of land right next to it.
And so because of that, you don't go right up to the edge. You have to leave you leave a big buffer zone to protect the creek, right?
That, and just watch what time of year that you're going to spread the manure. And like I said, watch the weather.
And with you mentioned precision agriculture, so are you able to use that if you have to use any other commercial type of fertilizers on your fields where okay, on this part of the field I can use a little bit, I need to use a little bit more, but over here on the other part of the field I don't need anything, we don't even have to worry about.
Oh yeah, we work with an agronomist with Synergy, the local co-op. Every field is analyzed every winter according to the soil test, and fertilization plan has been prescribed for the individual field. We try to group a few plans together, but it's looked at individually. We have been known to apply fertilizer like 5 or 6 different times throughout the growing season, just to spoon feed it. Don't put anything extra out there that might cause potential problems. So we really watch it.
Because you don't want to have any runoff, but more importantly, that groundwater, you use that back here on the farm with the cows, and your family, they're drinking that too. So you kind of have a vested interest in keeping that protected.
Absolutely, we watch that very closely, and as far as I know, we don't have any high nitrates in our soil right here. There's parts, we technically live in Chippewa County, but when we were getting this plan for this expansion, I worked with Chippewa County. They have some nitrate, well test nitrate maps out there, and right in the area where we farm and been no-tilling for years, along with our neighbors been no-tilling, we don't have problem with nitrates in our water here, and we probably technically really should with our lighter soils, but I think we've all been conscious of that. We watch our nitrogen, we no-till, we use cover crops, and we really protect our groundwater.
And while you've had light soil, I'm betting that because you've used cover crops, you're seeing higher organic matter already in the soil, so now it holds more water, and it has more nutrients already built in. That means you don't need any. You need less commercial fertilizer.
Yes, but it's slow. It takes time, but we continue just to strive to use cover crops, use no-till to try to grow those organic matters.
We are talking with Kevin Gilbertson. The Gilbertson Farm is the host of this Saturday's Dunn County Dairy Brunch, and it'll be from 9 to 1 here at the Gilbertson Farm just outside of Elk Mound. Tomorrow morning we'll wrap up our spotlight. We're going to talk about the Dairy Brunch. A little bit different. I kind of like that. We're going to talk with Kevin about that here coming up tomorrow. Again, thank you to Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin for supporting our spotlights this June Dairy Month. You're listening to WRDN.